Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Tom Spark Reviews. Today I wanted to make a new video reviewing NordVPN, even though it hasn't been that long since my last one. Now, one reason I wanted to do this is I found out that some of the top search results on NordVPN reviews on YouTube are actually kind of made from NordVPN investments. And what do I mean by that? Well, you could go to these videos specifically. For example, Cyber News, one of the bigger channels actually came out over the years. According to them, their NordVPN review, their Cyber News is owned by MediaTek, whose investors are founders of Nord Security. Same here. VPN Pro is owned by MediaTek, whose investors are founders of Nord Security. So on my channel, I'm not owned by Nord Security. I don't have any investments from Nord Security. And in my reviews, I show you not only what's good, but also what's bad about NordVPN. And the same for all VPNs. I'm only an affiliate, which means if you use my discount links in the description down below, I'll get a small cutback, but I receive no investments from NordVPN. So if you like the sounds of an objective review, stay tuned and I'll give you everything good and everything bad so you could help decide to make a good purchasing decision based on the actual data. That sounds good to you? Stay tuned. So guys, first up when discussing Nord is the pricing. Is it good or not? Well, long term, it is very good. Unfortunately, short term, it is not. And this is just kind of the realities of VPNs nowadays. Most VPNs are pretty expensive month to month, and you will save money subscribing long term. So I always recommend usually to people, if you want to test it out for a month maybe, but if you've tested it out before, or maybe you want to save more money long term, then I would go with the basic plan. $83 for 28 months is a pretty good deal overall. You also get a 30-day refund policy. I recommend people to pay with Nord with either something like privacy.com or cryptocurrency if possible. That way you won't get charged auto renewal fees. I do believe after this term it will be charging you year by year and more expensive as well. So this is something maybe some of those other reviews don't mention. So in terms of pricing, NordVPN is fairly priced long term and it's a decent deal. I've actually done some studies on my website where I compared NordVPN's price to performance ratio. For example, what I did is I tested all the VPNs in terms of speed compared to how expensive they were to how fast the speeds you can get. And NordVPN was number 2, only behind Surfshark, which is another company that kind of is owned under the same umbrella. But NordVPN was the fastest VPN, and for the price, it's actually a very good deal. So overall, I don't have too many complaints about the pricing system. Largely, I just think it could be more expensive short term. It can also have a 3-year plan, which would give you even more savings. They used to have this, but not so much anymore, and they could kind of remediate the price increase, maybe just keep this term and maybe just make it a little bit more clear on what the pricing will be after this term, since it doesn't really describe too well on this page. Those are my suggested improvements, and like I said, I haven't seen this mentioned in those other reviews. Next up, we can talk about the application, and honestly, NordVPN's application has gotten quite good. It has cool extra features like its MeshNet feature, which lets you transfer files, set up a local area network and remote in, which is really good for media streaming or sharing games locally with friends, even if they're not in your house. So that's very nice. This is a freely included option with NordVPN subscription, so you don't have to pay extra, which is also very good. NordVPN also has a couple other different things in terms of like ad blockers and things like that when it comes to Threat Protection Pro. This is kind of like an antivirus light. I don't know if it necessarily fully replaces an antivirus, but it's pretty close. If you're a pretty savvy internet user, you might be fine just with this one. Overall, I'm not going to go into too much details on this one since it is a paid upgrade, but overall, it's a decent package for the application. Specifically, the application is what we kind of more look at, and if we look at how it compares to other competitors, it's pretty good. A couple of things it could improve, for example, is it doesn't have a Linux GUI. Surfshark does have a Linux GUI. NordVPN only has a CLI for Linux, so only a command line interface if that's something you want. But the command line interface is open source, which is really nice. Additionally, Nord is kind of missing some of those things some of those other VPNs have in terms of its packaged bundles. For example, it doesn't have encrypted email like Proton or antivirus completely like Surfshark, but it makes up for some of that in some of those other bundles like encrypted cloud storage you can pay for, password management, stuff like that. In terms of compatibility though, Nord is excellent. In terms of its Apple TV app, it made one a while ago. It's one of the first VPNs to do so, which is really nice. So you're not going to have a problem installing Nord on various devices. It works good on my NVIDIA Shield, Fire Sticks, Apple TVs, iPads, everything, you name it. All the apps are very up to date a lot. And that's actually something I've been looking for more lately, is to see how often an application is updated, to see how kind of competent the development is, and NordVPN does get consistent updates, which is a metric we do look for. I'm not going to do a speed test directly in this video since I've done so many already this year, but NordVPN in terms of speed when compared to other VPNs, it does extremely well. With my connection, Nord hardly impacts my speed at all, as you can see from these tests and research I've done, and the price to performance is very good, so you don't really have anything to worry about when it comes to NordVPN speed, and in fact it is the fastest VPN I've tested over the last year or two. Now, if you take a look at the privacy section of my data, well, NordVPN does have improvements here, and I doubt those other channels really mention some of these things. Nord has had some issues a long time ago when it comes to some private key. Specifically, back in 2018, there was a data center in Finland where an unauthorized third party gained access to a server and private key. Nord claimed that no user information or user credentials were actually leaked. There was just some kind of isolated incident, more so with the data center. Since then, they've done a lot of improvements, I would say, which makes this not a huge issue, but something worth bringing up that other reviews probably won't mention. For me, I feel pretty safe using NordVPN nowadays, especially since that was like a long time ago, 6 years ago, or actually that was 2018. That might have been a long time ago. That was like 8 years ago. Wow, time is flying by. But nowadays I feel pretty secure using NordVPN because it does have very good principles when it comes to bug bounties. It's one of the most active bug bounties you can see here, very transparently paid out and rewarding system for people pen testing NordVPN. Secondarily, Nord has had plenty of transparency reports over the years, which is good for like just kind of transparency with its audience. And lastly, NordVPN has done tons of no-log audits, ensuring that they're not collecting any data. They also only use RAM servers as well, so it's not really something I'm worried about nowadays when it comes to security or privacy. That said, I do think NordVPN could improve its transparency a little bit when it comes to its website. For example, there are some VPNs out there using more privacy-friendly analytics software, whether that be open source analytics or not tied to Google Analytics, or kind of less just kind of trackers on the applications and websites themselves. This is mostly done for kind of performing application improvements and stuff like that. They're not really collecting or selling any of this data. They're just kind of using it internally. Some VPNs collect less, and the applications are probably less good, to be honest. But that's just something worth mentioning since other reviews probably won't mention that. For example, I could show you a little bit here. If you take a look at NordVPN's application, it's 3 trackers: Apps Flyer, which is for analytics, Google Crash Analytics for crash reporting, and Google Firebase Analytics. This is all just stuff that is kind of improving their application. It's nothing nefarious or anything like that, but some VPNs go the extra step and just remove all this. And like I said, probably have worse applications for it, but it's just something some people do care about. Honestly, guys, there's not really too much to say about NordVPN. The customer support is really good. I usually give it 5 out of 5. It's got live chat, which is really good. The social media interactions I've had personally with the company are fine. The team is very friendly. Stream compatibility works pretty well. Honestly, probably the best out there. If you're looking to use a VPN to unblock streaming services like Netflix or anything like that, I've done tons and tons of tests on these things, and Nord has always pretty much performed the best. And in fact, I run the largest Netflix unblocking streaming subreddit, and this is kind of one of my tests here. I tested like 10 or 15 different servers, and they all worked fine. So Nord is very, very good for streaming, coupled with the fact that they have this mesh networking, which is really cool, that lets you kind of work really good for Plex or various other services. It's a good option for streaming, and coupled with the fact that it has Apple TV in every app, whereas a lot of VPNs don't. That's another reason why it's very good. In terms of the GUI and everything like that, honestly, no complaints on my behalf. As you can see, the GUI is excellent. It's very good on all the different platforms. So in summation, do I recommend NordVPN? Well, yes. It's not without its faults. I think they could improve some of the analytics and use less tracking. Admittedly, it could make the application slightly more buggy, but for privacy, it's objectively better. Just maybe for usability, it would go down a little bit. It's kind of like a push and pull there, I think, and NordVPN is probably aware of that. I think the application still could use some improvements or maybe additional features. A Linux GUI would be nice. They could add port forwarding. Some people really do care about this, but in my experience, it's not really a must. The speeds are just so good anyway. Honestly, I think NordVPN could do without having investments in some of these other kind of review platforms here on YouTube. They really do review NordVPN a lot. It's made it a lot harder for my channel to compete with my objective kind of data driven test reviews, and that kind of sucks for me personally. I don't necessarily think that makes it a worse product necessarily. Objectively, I have to be objective and say it doesn't really make it a worse product. It doesn't really affect you. It just affects me and more honest reviewers. But at the end of the day, not really much I could do about that besides tell you what I've found. I think the pricing could be a little bit more affordable month to month. I think they could be a little bit more clear on what the price will increase to after the first term. And that's why I recommend people to use privacy.com or cryptocurrency. Subscribing to these services, make sure you turn off auto renewal if you don't want to find out what the price will be after that term. Come back here after 2 years and get another really good deal. So guys, in conclusion, where does NordVPN rank? Well, it is the #1 ranked VPN. And in this video, you could tell no VPN is perfect. But over the years, NordVPN has climbed to the top on my list, and we've seen a lot of other good VPNs that used to compete or even be better slowly start to slip, which is just the unfortunate reality of the current marketplace. For example, other VPNs like TorGuard haven't been updated for a year. Lots of old VPNs like Cactus VPN that used to be really good and affordable have no longer been updated. Some VPNs out there just have slowly died or went out of business, like VPN or some other VPNs I used to like. Nowadays, NordVPN Surfshark are just the most consistent, most updated, and best VPNs. Are they perfect? No. Do I wish they didn't seem to kind of have investments in some of these other competing channels? Yes. But objectively, they still are the best VPN for you, the consumer, to get a good product. The speeds are good. The features are good. The app compatibility is good. The streaming compatibility is very good. Everything is pretty much good across the board. And I think if you choose these products, especially with my links to get that discount, you'll probably be pretty happy. All right, guys, stay tuned for more up-to-date rankings in the future, and I'll see you again very soon.